Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
Aside from being too hot, I don't think we've got any news.
My god, it's hot.
Also, we don't have an episode next week.
Oh, that was blunt.
Kind of, but, you know, it's kind of news.
Yeah, just taking a brief summer break, so we're having 1 week off, and then we'll be back with the season finale the week after.
Yay!
We've made it to the end of another season.
Yay!
Almost.
And I think I was going to figure into some of our comments of basically, my god, the X-Files feels tired now. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But should we take a trip to Hollywood, 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 I don't know.
To be fair, we've been vaguely there for a while, given they moved to LA at the start of the season.
True, but this is the first time we've got one set in Hollywood rather than just in LA.
True.
So we're going to go to Hollywood AD. Directed and written by David Duchovny. First broadcast on the 30th of April 2000. Guest stars. There's some weird ones.
Okay.
So we've got Gary Shandling, who plays himself and Agent Fox Mulder. Confusingly. This will make sense. We have seen him in Zoolander, where he also played himself.
Okay.
Iron Man 2 and Captain America the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
He's also in Carolina City.
Okay.
Keeps coming back, that one. We also have Taya Leone, who also plays herself and Agent Dana Scully. She was in League of Her Own, the film version, Bad Boys, Deep Impact, Jurassic Park 3, and showed up in an episode of Frasier.
And at the time this was written, she was David Duchovny's wife, I believe.
Yes. We also have Wayne Federman, who plays Wayne Federman, not himself, but the character of the same name.
Fair enough.
Just to be distinct. Because I think it's the actors are meant to be the actors, but he's not actually meant to be the same as he actually is, even though he's playing himself, basically.
I think in real life he's like a SNL alumni, isn't he?
Something like that, and he's also a writer-producer. He's whatever he says he is in the episode. He's in What We Do in the Shadows, weirdly enough.
Well, the film.
The TV series.
The TV series.
He's also been in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the final episode of Community.
Okay.
And he's in Baywatch.
Fair enough.
One time. Okay, so next one is the one where it's one of those, of course that's who it is. So Harris Yulin played the Cardinal O'Fallon.
I thought he looked familiar, but go on.
Ghostbusters 2. He's the judge.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently he's always looked that old as well. Because he's also in Loch Ness, Multiplicity, Bean, Rush Hour 2, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Frasier, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is the one I remembered him being in, and the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. We also have, I love this one, Tony Amendola as a Cigarette Smoking Pontiff. This too will make sense. Who's in The Mask of Zorro. And the other one we should have known him for, he's in Seinfeld.
Okay.
He is Salman Rushdie.
Ah, Sal Bass.
Yeah. Also in Star Trek Voyager, Dexter, Dirt Gently Sadistic Detective Agency, the American version.
Okay.
World of Warcraft, where he plays Khadgar.
Ah!
And not the film version when we went...
He's got to be the voice of Khadgar, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's the voice of Khadgar in the games. He's not the one from the film where he said, I'm Khadgar. No, you're not.
And how we laughed.
Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, who's he in FF15?
No one I can remember.
Oh, okay.
Not a very memorable person. Not one of the main. Anyway. And there's also in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor.
Okay.
The Dark Souls-y, Star Wars-y game.
Mm-hmm. So, do you want to attempt to give us a synopsis of Hollywood AD?
I will try, and I'm going to take this from Wikipedia. Skinner's college friend, Hollywood producer Wayne Federman, is involved in a film project about the FBI. During Federman's research phase, Skinner gives him access to Mulder and Scully, who are investigating the attempted murder of Cardinal O'Fallon. Federman tags along and constantly interrupts the agents. While searching the catacombs of O'Fallon's church, Mulder finds the remains of Micah Hoffman, a missing 1960s counterculturist. Searching Hoffman's apartment, they find bombs and counterfeiting tools, as well as a forged Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Mulder and Federman return to the catacombs, finding several skeletons and pieces of the forged Gospel. Federman wanders off and stumbles upon animated bones, who attempt to assemble a shattered piece of pottery. He panics and leaves the scene. As they examine the pottery, Scully tells Mulder the story of the Lazarus Bowl, in which the aunt of Lazarus had been making a clay bowl when Jesus Christ resurrected him. The words of Christ were then apparently encoded into the grooves of the bowl, much like a phonograph. Mulder brings the relic to Chuck Burks, who, after performing a sonic analysis, discovers voices in the Aramaic. In one portion, part of the audio, one man commands another to rise from the dead. The other contains lyrics from I Am the Walrus by the Beatles, plus an allusion to the Paul is Dead urban legend. Mulder visits O'Fallon, who admits he bought the forged gospel from Hoffman, believing it was real. Meanwhile, during Hoffman's autopsy, Scully experiences a hallucination wherein he comes back to life on the operating table and begins talking. Later at church, Scully has a hallucination of Hoffman in Jesus' place on a large crucifix. Mulder arrests O'Fallon for Hoffman's murder, but Hoffman walks in unscathed. He tells the audience that while he initially created the forgeries to make money, he came to believe that he was the reincarnation of Christ, and bombed the church to give other blasphemous forgeries. A furious Scully suspends Mulder and Scully for 4 weeks because of the mix-up. 16 months later, O'Fallon kills Hoffman in a murder-suicide. As such, the X-File is never truly solved. During a suspension, Mulder and Scully venture to Hollywood to view the production of Federman's film. It is revealed that Federman's movie will be called The Lazarus Bowl, with Gary Shandling playing Mulder and Téa Leoni playing Scully. After filming is done, Mulder and Scully attend a screening of the film with Skinner, but are disappointed with how the movie portrays them and the case. The agents leave the set holding hands, presumably on the way to dinner with the FBI credit card Skinner gave them, hinting at continued romantic relationship between them. As they leave, the dead who are resting underneath the film set are revived, begin to dance passionately, reinforcing a theory Mulder made earlier in the episode about how the undead want to initially eat, then dance, and then make love.
Thank you.
This episode is a colossal mess.
It's had rave reviews at the time it came out, and it remains a very popular episode of The X-Files.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know if I should like it, and also every time I watch it I go, well, these parts of the episode are terrible, or these bits are confusing.
It is a weird mishmash, and the two halves of the episode kind of don't entirely gel.
No, and like in the summary, it makes a big thing of the I Am the Walrus gag, and I don't know why it's in there, because what are you even trying to imply, that the Beatles got the lyrics for I Am the Walrus from Aramaic, even though they don't have the word for walrus, so they've got a weird placeholder word.
Well, the Beatles did famously damage their careers by claiming they were bigger than Jesus.
Which I imagine is what they're going for, but why is it included in the Lazarus Bowl?
Interestingly, I read that Mythbusters did an episode where they disproved it being possible that you could encode music onto grooves in pottery. And in that episode, they did refer to Hollywood AD with clips from the show.
Okay. I mean, normally, I don't think anyone would believe that you could encode sound waves into clay just while you're making it normally. But I can see of it's, magic, it's the word of God and everything, that maybe that would have done the same effect.
Yeah.
It feels like a dangling plot thread, though, because you've got apparently the words that bring people back to life, and then you don't do anything with that.
The words apparently encoded in ancient Aramaic as well.
And that's a big thing. We apparently don't do anything with it, because where else are you going to get this thing from?
It's integrated better than that Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which when they kind of show it is written in modern Greek, which obviously should have thrown up the red flags about whether or not it was genuine to begin with.
Yeah, and the whole forgery thing feels really odd. I don't know, quite makes sense, the chain of events here. So it's Micah Hoffman fakes the Gospel of Mary Magdalene for money and sells it to O'Fallon,
who essentially buys it so he can hide it.
Yeah. Not destroy it, just hide it. And then is it O'Fallon who sets the bomb, or is it Hoffman?
I believe you're going on the chain of events. It is O'Fallon that sets the bomb.
Okay.
Or rather, he murders Hoffman and then sets the bomb to cover it up.
Yeah, except then he doesn't actually kill Hoffman until later on, when he does kill him.
Or rather, if you're going to believe that he has somehow transubstantiated himself into Jesus, O'Fallon does kill Hoffman, Hoffman rises from the dead, and then O'Fallon kills him again.
Yeah, and it's hard not to sympathise with Mulder a bit in this episode, because it's got one of those bits of the plotting that are very like how the film did it. Because the film was, we're throwing the book at Mulder and Scully because they didn't prevent a building exploding.
Yeah.
And no point in their defence they say, yeah, okay, we lost one FBI agent, but we got everyone else out. Or we lost one FBI agent and that fire crew on the 8th floor, wherever it was.
It was all the people that were already dead, but they took the rap for it, like 4 of the dead bodies in the movie.
And it's a case of their defence was never, we got everyone else out, and if we hadn't been in the wrong building, everyone would have died.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's the whole, Mulder does put up the faint protest of, okay, that wasn't Hoffman's body, but who was it?
Yeah.
They probably don't care about that, and then they just kind of just move on.
The embarrassment of them declaring someone dead who was still alive.
Yeah. And you sort of want to go, but he looked like him, he was holding his ID, he had his phone. I don't know what else you were meant to do.
Yeah, it does feel a small potatoes reason for them kind of being, suspended this time.
I do think Duchovny struggled with the plot of this. Just because we have all this religious gospel stuff, and I can kind of see the whole... There's meant to be a kind of a whole trying to fake a true document, I think is what he's trying to get at.
I don't think he's quite got the characters down as well, and we've said this for a few writers in the past of Mulder is all guns blazing for this Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which he shouldn't believe in because he's Mulder. Scully should be more interested in this.
Yes. But at the same time, I think what he's trying to go for is Hoffman has created a fake real document. This is very Lovecraftian, actually. This is like Proto-Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Where the guy comes into an antique store with a bas relief and says, how much is this worth? And the guy says, you made this yesterday.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's actually ancient or something. And that was the seed of Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, that's how it all begins.
Yeah. And so you can say that's what Hoffman kind of made a true document, faking-wise. And then that's meant to translate to the Lazarus Bowl at the end, which does resurrect people.
You're going on the basis of the idea that if you believe something wholeheartedly, you kind of change your makeup. So it's the idea of this man has tried to get in the head of Jesus Christ so much that he has become akin to Jesus.
Yeah.
It's similar to the kind of grotesque idea of Mulder becoming kind of unhinged as he tries to get in the head of serial killers.
Yes.
The idea that someone can be that empathic.
Or if you want a literary funny one, is there's a Borges short story about the man who wants to become Cervantes.
Okay.
Because he wants to write Don Quixote. He doesn't want to rewrite it, he doesn't want to adapt it. He wants to write... Become
Cervantes and, write it firsthand.
Yeah, but he also doesn't believe that Cervantes was qualified to do it.
Okay.
It's fascinating to read it, because basically he puts two excerpts from Don Quixote into the text and says, look at this one, rubbish stuff by Cervantes, and then this portion, written by this guy. It's like, how much better the text is and everything, how much more meaningful.
So you can kind of get believably into that, because you can think of, usually kind of quite novice authors who believe that they are better than established ones in that way.
Yeah, but I unfortunately can't remember what the story is, but there's a Borges short story that is very much on the same line of thinking. And I think that's an interesting idea. It's not an X-Files idea, because it doesn't connect with the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like it's two episodes merged together, because you get this kind of lackluster plot about the Lazarus Bowl, which has some funny moments that I quite enjoy, particularly the bits with Chuck.
Yeah.
But that kind of rounds up about 2/3 of the way through the episodes with a "and we'll never know" sort of round off. And then you get the kind of fun Hollywood bit at the end, which is the funnier part of the episode.
Yeah, and we'll sort of do the Hollywood thing as a whole, I think, should be the whole thrust of the episode. And I don't quite understand why it wasn't. Because it's like having this writer-producer tag along with you and just be a nuisance the entire time is quite funny.
Yeah.
And Mulder saying, did I do something worse than normal, sir? It's a reason why we have to have this guy come round with us.
It's the fact that neither Mulder or Scully have any kind of time for him. It's a bit like the Scully we saw in X-Cops, where she kept slamming the door in the film Crue's face and things like that.
Absolutely, and I like that. And I also... the really surreal comment that he has after he sees the bones in the crypt. He says, that was either practical effect or CGI. It's like, no, you watched it in front of you. It's neither of those things, but you're doing it entirely in terms of film. That's great. I like that.
He's a really fun character, and I like the fact that essentially he's Skinner, or rather Skinman's long-term friend. And Skinner is quite flattered by his attentions the entire thing, and is letting things slide that Skinner normally wouldn't. Yeah. You're seeing this kind of playful side to Skinner we've never had before.
Yes, and I like the implication about this, because we've never seen a friend of Skinner's before, and it's Skinner, your college life was very different to how you act these days.
Well, it's because I guess most of what we've seen of Skinner is Skinner either in his flashbacks to the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Or the Skinner that's become following coming back from Vietnam, not the playful Skinner college days.
Yeah. Although, how old was he when he went to Vietnam? Wasn't he young when he went to Vietnam?
You think he'd be fairly young. I think to go to Vietnam you had to be at least 18, if I remember correctly.
I wonder if the timeline has been screwed up, because I have a sneaky suspicion that Skinner went as soon as he was able, which mixed college, he could have gone afterwards, but generally you don't do that.
In the flashbacks in things like Avatar, he looked fairly young.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's more fun this way anyway.
Yeah.
And I like... It's just the whole... the casting situation is a case of, who would you see playing you? And more than immediately suggest Richard Gere.
Which apparently is a running joke, because at the time this was written, David Duchovny's acting was often compared to Richard Gere's, and there was a joke on set before the X-Files movie that they were going to recast them and it was going to be Richard Gere and Jodie Foster playing Mulder and Scully in the movie.
It's kind of a shame they didn't get Richard Gere in then, because they got Jodie Foster for Never Again.
Yeah, true, just to do the voice.
Well, she was in the episode briefly.
Oh, yes, she was.
There's a very brief shot
Yeah,
of
in
her.
The Office.
And I thought it was her, and you were saying, it can't possibly be her. No, but it is.
I'd say the same thing for Richard Gere, as maybe he was a bit too big to get into the X-Files.
Well, maybe.
But the Gary Shandling casting apparently is also a running joke, because it's something like the Larry Sanders Show, again, something we didn't have in the UK, that Shandling was in, that there was a running joke within the show about David Duchovny being in love with Shandling.
Oh.
So in the scenes with Shandling, you get this kind of adoration, almost attraction to Mulder that he seems to have.
I mean, I did like the absolutely terrifying depths of close study that Shandling had for Mulder.
Oh, the which side do you dress?
Yeah, it's oh my god, man. And the fact that when he sort of says it, he sort of really runs off to wardrobe, it's...
But it's also, the left sometimes. Wait, sometimes?
But so much funnier, though, is Tia Leone asking Scully how she runs in high heels.
Apparently, if you're watching carefully, in that bit where she goes off to show her to run in high heels, you can see Gillian Anderson swapping for a stunt double for it as well.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, because she's not really going to be running back, pelting backwards and forwards down a...
Actually, Duchovny was involved in the casting for this episode. Particularly, you see it in the Hollywood bit at the end, because a lot of the characters he's cast are actually X-Files crew members.
Okay.
So you have the woman who's head of catering who says that the zombie shoulder is made out of turkey is the X-Files caterer.
Okay.
And I think it's the vegetarian zombie is the head of photography or something like that.
That's cool.
But also, he got a load of his family members cast in the episode because it meant that they could then, as actors, apply for Screenwriters Guild card and get better health insurance because of it. Which, from an English perspective, that's the horror of the American health and insurance industry. But also kind of nice.
Yes. Oh, I'm not going to say it's not nice, but geez, my God, that's awful.
It's something that always sounds terrible to us as English people where we have national health care.
Yeah. I do kind of wish that we got more of the Lazarus Bowl film. Just because, I don't know, you could kind of make the argument of, couldn't you have actually made the whole episode as a special, make the Lazarus Bowl just an episode of the X-Files and just have Tia Leone and Gary Shandling do Mulder and Scully?
You thinking about it like in the style of that episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender where they watch the play about themselves?
Yeah, or you could even do it like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. You could have a documentary about the making of the Lazarus Bowl and then have the asides to actual Mulder and Scully.
Do it in the style of Spinal Tap then, where they're interviewing them to one side.
Yeah. Or you could even do it like Jose Chung. You know, like Mulder refuses to have anything to do with this.
Well, actually, on the subject of Spinal Tap, did you know that Gary Shandling was the first in line to play Maurice Fletcher?
I did not.
He couldn't do it because he wasn't available at the time.
I think we won out with Michael McKean. But, I mean, I would have liked to have seen more of the Lazarus Bowl, but, I mean, admittedly, some of this is because I love the lunacy of the Cigarette Smoking Pontiff, his army of sniper zombies, the zombie asking, don't make us go out to being dead.
The joke that really cracks me up in the episode is the kind of tangible romance between Tia Leone and Gary Shandling, which ends with Tia Leone saying she's more attractive to Agent Skinner.
Yes. Like, hey, Skinner, do we have to have words with you about your producer credit on this film and why this scene is likely in here?
It's the embarrassment of Skinner in it, though, because that's when he gives them the prepaid FBI credit card.
Yeah. After his fancy bubble bath. Oh, no, it's before. It's after.
It's after the bubble bath. The bubble bath's a good scene, too.
I like that one, too. Again, there's all these nice little moments like Mulder and Scully doing the Hollywood life.
I like that. It's a tried joke before as well, though, with the conference call where they're all in the bath, where Mulder thinks he's talking about Skinner to Scully and he's still got Skinner on the line.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
That's all great. But, I mean, could we not have had the Sniper Zombie episode? Just because I love the Cigarette Smoking Pontiff.
You mean that
Stupid
cigarette
gag.
smoking mackerel snapper?
Absolutely ridiculous plotline, but it would have been very funny to watch. Just watch. I mean, it's kind of... This is Darren Morgan saying, if Darren Morgan was still around and you gave him the whole idea concept, I have a sneaky suspicion you would actually get more of the film. Just the whole, let's push the X-Files to its most ridiculous degree. But it make the series that everyone thinks the X-Files is if you don't actually watch it.
Yeah, true.
And unfortunately, we don't get that. The bits we do get are nice, but... And I like the opening, though, you giving no clue as to why someone else is playing Mulder this week.
It was the tagline of the episode with question marks was something like, Gary Shandling is Agent Mulder, Taya Leone is Agent Scully.
It'll all make sense in the end. It's just one of those, I'd like them to be more... I mean, I imagine that both of them are more established or possibly doing more things, so they couldn't get them as easily. It's just... Again, it's the weird two halves of the episode, because, again, I can kind of see you're trying to equate this to the fakes, but you've got all that resurrection stuff in the first part and Jesus, and the second part you've got fake Lazarus balls, resurrect the dead, and as you commented, there's an awful lot of dead people in that set on 20th Century Fox.
In a soundstage.
In a soundstage, there's a lot of dead bodies in there, apparently.
That scene was actually largely criticised, as far as the episode was, because, you know, people love this episode. But it's just how kind of out of place that last bit with the dancing ghosts is. I kind of like it, to be honest. It's quite a sweet little end scene, especially after Mulder's monologue previously about the fact that we think of zombies as being cannibalistic, because it's the kind of human urges they get when they wake, and we never give them time to get to the next stage, where they want to dance and make love.
Yeah, I do also like that as well. It is out the blue, so it's... Yeah, you could have put him into his proper graveyard for this, rather than a soundstage graveyard. But yeah, I'm so... Think about security at the studio. They've just let Mulder walk out of the screening theatre, which generally isn't on the lot, because they usually put them at external theatres, and he's gone to the 20th Century Fox film lot.
Yeah.
To go and sit on the set, which they haven't taken down. Guys, you've been around Hollywood. You surely know that this place would have been destroyed by now.
Yeah. And it's when you have the premieres, you know, from the Western perspective anyway, that's where you normally have the kind of man's Chinese theatre sort of premiere of something. It's not actively on the soundstage.
No, not like that. I mean, that would be a rough cut screening as you'd get it actually on the 20th Century Fox slot.
Yeah.
Then you wouldn't have everyone in back tie and Minnie Driver in the audience. It would be important in the cast list because she's in it for Blink and Miss It, but yeah, Minnie Driver is in this episode for some reason.
Yeah, I went to the premiere of an indie movie in my hometown once before, and again, it's much like that, you know, they book out a place and you watch it on a big cinema screen, and, you know, there are vol au vents and wine and a bit of a black tie thing to it.
Yeah, it's too bitty, I think. It's two episodes, as you say, two episodes mashed together. Neither of them quite have enough time to do anything with their concepts. I think Micah Hoffman is meant to be... Presumably he's meant to be an interpretation of some countercultural person. I'm not sure exactly who he's meant to be. And I don't get... I mean, I don't like the sum up at the end of, yeah, O'Fallon then killed him and then killed himself. Some weeks later, it's like, what? Why? I do, however, like the fact that finally, Plan 9 from Outer Space has made it in.
Mulder's watched 42 times.
It has to be 42 because it's got to be the number. And the fact it's so bad it induces a kind of mental zen state.
I can believe that.
Well, I mean, I would say I have actively tried to watch Plan 9 from Outer Space, and one of the problems with it is if you watch Ed Wood or its reputation, you get a sense of what the film is like. If you actually try and watch it, you have to actually try, because I bounced off it so hard, because it's not laugh out loud, it's so bad it's good, it's so bad it's boring. It's like Transformers 2. Remember when we watched that and we just left the room and left the film to its own devices for a bit?
Yeah.
Then came back, it's like, oh, for God's sake, I've got to turn it off.
So it's not so bad it's good in the sense of Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
No, I mean, Tommy, The Room happily sat and laughed all the way through that. Plan 9 from Outer Space is, yes, it's really bad. It's also really boring.
Oh dear.
I know. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to get flack for that and other people are going to disagree, but I have tried a few times to watch it. and it's never lived up to the reputation that Ed Wood gives it.
Yeah, I've seen Ed Wood. I've never watched Plan 9 itself.
I think it's Ed Wood gives you the best kind of overview of it. I mean, it does have all the faults Ed Wood brings up.
Yeah.
It's like you have lost Bela Lugosi, so you are replacing him with someone who looks a bit like him.
Yeah.
And you've got inordinately long takes and, bad splices, terrible special effects and all the rest of it. But it's not a cohesive film. And, I can never quite get past the Seinfeld gag either. It's like, Plan 9, this is the one that worked.
True.
I mean, do we have anything else for this episode? Because this one's a whole lot more possibly fun to talk about than what we've got to get to.
Yeah, I think that about sums it up. I don't dislike Hollywood ID. I actually like it a lot, but I don't consider it one of the better episodes of The X-Files. It's got a lot of fun moments, but it's a bit of a cohesive mess, I feel.
I would agree with you on that one. Again, I think if we had more of the Lazarus Bowl, I think you have to tilt it one way or the other. It has to be more about Mika and O'Fallon.
Or more about the film.
Yeah, and I know there's an attempt to be a thematic mirroring or some kind of linkage between the two of them. I don't think it comes across very well. There's something about artificial gospels and artificial religious faith things you're trying to do. It's not that cohesive or clear.
I do feel it's nice for balance having this right after Brand X last week, which was, a really horror episode, a really grisly, nasty, quite creepy body horror.
Yeah.
And then you have this that's kind of fun after it. It's like the two extremes of the X-Files, really.
Yeah. And I do like as well that we have an excuse for supernatural again. It's not come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And not like, because it's the constant complaint of Chimera and first-person shooter of, I don't understand why this is happening.
Yeah.
If we want to move on, we can now... we can cut the episode off here because we can't talk about the next one. That's the first rule.
And the second rule.
We can't talk about Fight Club. But we're going to have to.
Oh, please.
I wish. So, we're going to have to disregard what Tyler Durden told us and say we're going to have to talk about Fight Club. Breaking the first two rules, we're going to be... Well, he didn't. He only shunned them a bit. He wasn't that angry when they broke the rules because you have to get new people in somehow. We might not be eligible for Project Mayhem, but, we can talk about Fight Club.
I'm not wearing any shoes, so at least that follows that rule.
We are, of course, talking about the pretty infamous Fight Club. Alison Pregler has also made a video about this one, and there's a lot of problems. But directed by Paul Shapiro, written by Chris Carter. Carter!
And there's that sting again.
Always. First broadcast on the 7th of May 2000. Guest stars, there are some weird ones. So the major person is, of course, Kathy Griffin, who plays Betty Templeton and Lulu Pfeiffer.
Mm-hmm.
She was in, of all things, Pulp Fiction.
Was she?
She, very small role as far as I can tell, Hit and Run Waitress is her credit.
Right, yeah.
I'm not sure where she falls in the film, but she's in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Cable Guy, that's more of a obvious one. Muppets from Space. Shrek Forever After. The Muppets. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Cal in the City. The one I think we know her best for is Seinfeld, where she plays his arch nemesis. One of his arch nemesis, he has a few.
Yeah.
The Simpsons and Futurama.
And, of course, the very short-lived Kathy Griffith show.
I don't think we ever got that one. Or if we did, it was like late night on Channel 4.
It didn't last very long. It's not very well regarded.
Okay. We also have Randall Tex Cobb, who played Bert Zupanik, who is a real-life boxer, wrestler, kickboxer, fighter guy.
Not surprised.
He has an enormous long career, but also has done film stuff. And some of those are, of course he's in that one. So there's Racing Arizona.
Okay.
Police Academy 4.
Mm-hmm.
The one that is kind of it's him, Ernest Goes to Jail. He's also in Liar Liar. Art Evans plays Argyle Saperstein, who is in Die Hard 2.
Sean Saperstein.
He is the wrestler agent. The guy that Bert is trying to pay off.
Okay, I can't picture him in Die Hard 2.
No, I can't either. Jack McGee plays Angry Bob. That's his credit. He was in Lethal Weapon 2. Showgirls. Twin Peaks. Also in Seinfeld. Just everyone's in Seinfeld. Baywatch. Buffy the Vampire Slayer again. Spin City. Veronica Mars. And Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Fair enough.
And two extras who don't have illustrious careers, but we'll note them. So we have Arlene Pileggi playing FBI agent who looks a bit like Scully.
Mm-hmm.
wife of Mitch Pileggi.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Kiziak, who is David Duchovny's stunt double, playing guy who looks a lot like David Duchovny.
He's appeared in a couple of other ones before as well, like he was the PI in Hungry.
Yes. So, do you want to continue breaking rules and tell us about Fight Club?
I will try my level best. I'm sorry if this is very confusing. There's a lot of twins in this episode.
God, yeah.
Okay, our episode this time takes place in Kansas City, Kansas. We open on 2 Mormon missionaries who are visiting 2 women at 2 different homes. They are shocked to find that not only their homes and vehicles are similar, but so are the women themselves, almost exactly identical in fact. The second woman yells at the 2 confused missionaries to go away, at which point they suddenly and rather inexplicably start fighting in their yard. Later, 2 FBI agents, who at first we think from their voices are Mulder and Scully, but turn out just to be very similar-looking FBI agents, visit the first woman, who's actually called Betty Templeton, who claims to have no knowledge of the other woman. Almost immediately, the other woman, Lulu Pfeiffer, passes by in her car, and of course immediately the 2 agents begin fighting, just like the missionaries did before, and severely injure each other. Much like Mulder and Scully, it's quickly revealed that these 2 agents had worked together for 7 years and had no problems, and also believed that they were possessed and could not control themselves, even though they were vaguely aware of their actions. In the meantime, we see Lulu Pfeiffer. It should be noted that both these women are played by Kathy Griffin, so are absolutely identical. Tries and fails to get a job in a copy shop because of her kind of fragmented and bizarre work history. When she becomes aggravated, all the copies in the shop suddenly turn black. We also see the other woman, Betty, having a similar thing with a similar resume. Mulder and Scully get involved in this case after a slightly strange exchange in which Scully predicts why Mulder is interested in this. Aside from this, in a bar, we see a man named Bert Zupanik who comes across Betty. It quickly becomes apparent that he's previously had a relationship with Lulu and kind of mistakes the 2 women. Moments later, Lulu also walks into the bar, which causes an earthquake, shattering all the glass. Lulu then runs out on experiencing this phenomena. Mulder learns about the relationship between Lulu and Bert through his agent, a man named Argyle Saperstein. He also learns from this that Bert is a professional wrestler and that Lulu is kind of his lucky charm, so if they can't find him before, a big wrestling match that's coming up will certainly have Lulu in attendance. Scully also researches the 2 women and finds out that over the past 12 years, they have followed each other from location to location over 17 states and has always left mayhem in their wake, ranging from small kind of incidents to full-scale riots. Bert, we learn, is indebted to Argyle, who says that he will only be allowed to take part in this upcoming wrestling match if he pays back what he owes. We also quickly realise that Bert is now dating Betty, but is also having an affair with Lulu on the side, both women still unaware of each other. We see a second earthquake, also damaging the bar, also occur as Lulu prepares to walk in when Bert and Argyle exchanging money. After Betty emerges from the bathroom, the 2 see each other and all the glass in the building shattered. Bert is unconscious, and while he is out, Argyle steals the money and leaves, leaving Bert believing that he still needs to repay Argyle, and of course Argyle keeping quiet on this so he can claim the money twice. Bert discusses his problems with both Betty and Lulu, scamming money out of both of them. We see that both women also return to their copy shop jobs, and begin to very, very vaguely counterfeit the money needed by photocopying it. Mulder and Scully split up to interrogate the 2 doppelgangers. Betty tells Mulder that Lulu causes all the problems, and Scully is told the inverse by Lulu. Later, as Mulder leaves the copy shop, the 2 lookalikes pass each other in the street, and a sewer grate blows open, sucking Mulder inside a storm drain and sealing him inside. In the meantime, unable to contact Mulder, Scully investigates the father, a man called Bob Damphouse, who is in prison and seems to be a perpetually angry man, on the verge of absolute insanity. Mulder eventually manages to escape the storm drain. However, while at the prison, we see that Scully has also met a man that looks exactly like Bert Zupanik. Everything comes to a head at the stadium where both Lulu and Betty meet, and everyone in the audience suddenly breaks into a violent fight. They stop when the Bert doppelganger shows up with Scully, only to immediately start again as the 2 Berts encounter each other. The episode ends with Mulder and Scully back at the office, both bruised and badly beaten. This is a very hard to summarise episode.
I think you can make a case for, and I've kind of been feeling it all season, but I mean, this one feels like the X-Files is exhausted.
I got some fun, quotes to read from reviews on this one, just because this episode is universally hated.
Yes.
It's often called the worst episode of the X-Files, and Tessos Desbichos was setting a low bar for that.
Tessos Desbichos, you can tell what they were going for. They didn't have the money to do it. Whereas this is, I don't know what on earth he wanted to try.
Okay, some of my fun comments from critics for this. I'll try and credit people directly. What have we got? So, the biggest criticism of the episode, before I begin, is Kathy Griffin herself, with a lot of people commenting the fact that she is playing two characters who are functionally identical, but they are two different women, and you often can't tell which is which, because she cannot differentiate between two.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if that's meant to be the point or not, but yeah, there's some very minor indicators on each of them.
So, I give you Christina Brutowski of 11th Hour magazine. Just when you thought the X-Files couldn't get a more grating guest star than Victoria Jackson, Chris Carter manages to top himself yet again with not one, but two, for the love of God, two, Kathy Griffins in a Carter-penned episode Fight Club. It's a safe bet that this disjointed, lame episode will probably not be easily confused with the far superior David Fincher movie of the same name, but then the current state of the X-Files makes Elmo in Grouchland looks like an Oscar contender. Kevin Silver from Space.com. This episode conveys a strong sense of writer, director and actors merely going through the motions to collect their sizable paychecks while running out the clock on this season and series.
Yeah.
And my personal favourite, which is a rarity, because Tom Kesnich is usually hopelessly optimistic about everything, and this is the first time I've actually seen him say that he dislikes an episode.
Wow.
So this is Tom Kesnick in his book Examinations, which says, "If it is indeed true that somewhere out there in this vast world we all have an identical twin, I have but one wish for mine. I sincerely hope he was spared the hour of torture that Fight Club imposed upon me." So yeah, I think in all my reviews I found one positive critical review of this episode, and I'm not sure we were watching the same episode, to be honest.
Was he watching the film and said, I mean, one thing that's not clear at all is why on earth is this called Fight Club?
Because there's a lot of fighting in it, and we wanted to cash in on the name of a kind of record-breaking movie.
True. Though, where I kind of fall down on that is, that was released the previous year.
Mm.
So, that was at least 6 months, if not more, beforehand.
And the book way before that.
Yeah, so that makes it really odd. The other thing, and we noticed this while we were watching it, is this supernatural phenomena, which we do get an excuse for. I can't believe this is a thing we have to keep track of now, that we get an excuse for why it's happening. Sort of. Is so inconsistent, because, yeah, the Mormons start fighting, the FBI agents start fighting. Going to the bar causes an earthquake. Meeting in the middle of the street causes a vortex that sucks Mulder into the sewers. The wrestling match causes a fight. What?
In a way, it made me think of Syzygy, and I feel bad defending Syzygy, because I also don't like that episode. But at least with Syzygy, it was consistent.
Yeah.
And the phenomena occurred the same way every single time.
Was also, they were controlling it in Syzygy. They kind of knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting point to make, is I think this is Chris Carter saying, no one liked it last time, let me redo it. Not understanding quite why it didn't work last time, and why it still doesn't work.
It's like that old legend about what happens when the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, is kind of the feeling you get through this. But again, even that does not explain why this phenomena occurs at least 4 different ways over the course of the episode.
No, and I mean, if it was consistent, people start fighting when they come into contact with each other, that's fine.
I guess we're looking at it causes a chaotic reaction.
Yeah.
But that reaction, you just can't explain it, can you?
Well, even going beyond that, I mean, the initial premise of the episode flat out doesn't stay consistent, because it's those Mormons go to visit Betty first.
Yeah.
Then go to visit Lulu, then they start fighting.
Yeah.
But then
But they're not close either.
No, and then the FBI agents go to visit either Betty or Lulu, I can't tell which one it was.
Oh, it was Betty.
Yeah. And then when Lulu drives past, then they start fighting.
It usually feels like it's a kind of almost magnetic thing, like when you put the same poles of a magnet together and it kind of causes a reaction.
Yeah.
But you can't explain the Mormons on that basis because Betty and Lulu were like on opposite blocks.
Yeah.
Then the FBI agents is more understandable because they're both in the vicinity. Yeah. Ditto anything that happens at the wrestling match in the bar.
Yeah, except the bar doesn't act the same way again. I mean, I can get it that if, people start fighting around them when they get close, it's just the bar and the copy shops just throw that out. And I do, and it's a really weird one to fixate on, but what in the name of hell is Saperstein doing in Mulder and Scully's office at the end to explain it to? Of all the characters to explain why this is happening, why him?
The scammy agent.
Yeah, it's kind of, was there no one else available that day to film? Why is he here?
I think it's just hard because usually I kind of look at an episode and say, oh, actually, well, like in Hollywood AD, there are bits I don't like, but I like this bit.
Yeah.
I don't like anything in Fight Club. It's so hard for me to find the ray of sunshine. The only bit that vaguely made me chuckle was when you have that kind of pause when they bring in the second Bert Zapanic, and then the violence starts again.
Yeah.
Because you think Scully has resolved it, and she hasn't.
Yeah, and for a moment it does look like it has.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I'd say even the fake FBI agent gag doesn't work, and I don't understand how you've managed to fail at you've put the Mulder and Scully lookalikes in and somehow missed the joke.
Apparently, even Frank Spotnitz said that this episode was just an act in surreality, and they actually kind of wrote it up to, at the same time Chris Carter was under real time constraints because he had to write the pilot for The Lone Gunman.
Okay.
So he was trying to write 2 episodes in conjunction, one of which had to be a pilot that would win them another series. And therefore, this Fight Club episode is kind of like the product of his exhaustion and insanity. Which maybe feels to me like you should have got someone else to write the episode.
I was going to say, yeah, why? You have other writers on staff. You have other people submitting scripts.
You could have said, I am busy writing The Lone Gunman, let's let someone else write the script. You could have even done the usual thing of, I've got this idea, someone else write it.
Yeah.
Give it to Gilnitz or something like that to do.
Can we convince Morgan and Warren to go back for one more episode or something?
I'd have liked to seen the Vince Gilligan take on it because I still consider him the writer who does characters best.
Yeah.
And I feel that I agree with the whole Kathy Griffiths does not do a good job of differentiating between these two characters.
No.
And she is a bit of a Marmite comedian anyway, because I know a lot of people find her grating. She doesn't irritate me to that level, but I know she's one of these actresses that people either love or hate.
Yeah, well, I think she's not... I think she's probably fine as a stand-up comedian from the little I've seen of her do it. She's not a strong actress.
No, and I think, much like Jerry Seinfeld, she plays one character.
Yeah.
Which is kind of this character that's kind of overblown and kind of annoying.
Yeah. And that would be fine when she's playing herself or when she's in Seinfeld. Not for this, where, as you said, she's got to play 2 different characters who are, for all intents and purposes, functionally identical.
I was making notes as I went along because I kept getting confused as to whether she was supposed to be Betty or Lulu. Because they sometimes put them in different coloured shirts, but not always, and things like that. It is really hard to keep track of them in this episode.
And sometimes you're meant to be confused, but other times you're not.
Yeah.
And there's just... I do want to talk about the counterfeiting, because that's one thing that really boggles my mind, because I don't understand why this has got in.
Oh, with the photocopy.
Yeah. Like, first off, I think there was a very, very brief window, but we are talking 90s maybe for when you could plausibly counterfeit money with a photocopier. Because people very quickly realised that this was a potential issue. And that's why you got the metal strips, you get the holograms, you get the different texture paper, every other precaution you get. But on top of that, like, these things tend to have built-in mechanisms that if it recognises currency, it will not do it. That she could even try to print out money like this is just staggering.
I am going to cite, and it's a shameless plug for my own YouTube channel and stream, but I recently streamed a game a couple of months ago called Yakuza Like a Dragon, and you can still see it on my Adverse Camber 42 YouTube channel, shameless plug. But there is an entire subplot in that, with minor spoilers for the game, that involves counterfeiting. And it is a huge operation done by several criminal gangs working together with a whole bunch of equipment to do this. And you see this in the game. And compare that with stuffing money in a photocopier and hoping this will be efficient.
Exactly. I mean, I can go older stuff than that. The Goonies has a thing about counterfeiting bills. And they've got a massive printing press to do this. This isn't something you can do with a photocopier and hope to even try to replicate.
Well, I saw this decades ago when I worked in retail, is often in the UK people won't accept £50 notes because they're the easiest ones to counterfeit.
Yeah, because they're so rare.
Because they're so rare and it's harder to see that they're fake than things like fivers and tenors.
Yeah. So, yeah, the counterfeiting was just weird. And the fact he asked both women to go do it and both of them had the same idea and they both worked in copy shops. I mean, there's a gag in there which also should be funny but isn't, and it's the bizarre history of jobs they've both held.
Which include wild animal trainer.
Yeah, it's can you not make that funnier than just have it like mentioned on their resume? Because that should be funny and it's not. I don't understand. A lot of it just comes down to the whole Kathy Griffin is not the actress you want for this.
You need a character who's versatile enough to play characters that are recognisably the same character but also have something definitive about them.
Yes, I mean, my counterexample is probably always going to be Orphan Black, where you have one actress playing usually 3 or 4, but like up to 8 different characters who all look similar but act in completely different ways.
It's a skill. You often find it in like Japanese voice actors as well, where you'll find characters that voice things on opposite ends of the spectrum. So you'll be like, character Dark Lord Megadeth and also some cute mascot character, and you'd never believe they were the same person.
Yeah, and then there's the ones who always sound exactly the same way, just voice the same character forever. Like
Judging Attack.
And Judging Attack. I do feel we just keep... Fight Club is so difficult because we just keep sliding off the point where there's nothing to actually discuss about the wretched thing.
Yeah, it is a dreadful, dreadful episode. Technically, it's visually more impressive than Tesos des Bichos, but it's infinitely more irritating, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
you got a lot of special effects and lots of combat shots and things like that, which are all nicely shot.
But then it's in service of nothing. And just Mulder gets sucked into a storm drain, and that's the actual outcome of that is a line about how he spent some time in the sewer, and nothing else. He's not even comes out like covered in muck or something.
Or you think you get kind of hurt?
Yeah.
People normally get injured if they fall into sewer grates.
Or just, a vortex sucked you into a sewer Mulder.
In what looked like a gag from Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And, I think even it's like, I'd say more Rent-A-Ghost kind of level special effects, to be fair. And the second Birds of Panic, because I don't think, do we even get his name?
I don't think so.
I'm not quite sure what that was for. Because, I mean, the whole thing is that Angry Bob is the angriest person in the world, and apparently people went to a sperm bank and said, yes, 2 orders of that, please.
This sperm bank that apparently has no screening process.
No screening process, and
so you have a
photos.
Dangerous psychotic as your donor.
Also, I'm going on this very kind of general thing, because I've never looked into this, don't know at all, but I'm pretty sure that people look at the photos of the donors when they take the sperm donations.
And you thought, yes, I'd like 2 doses of the...
that guy.
The Bob, whatever his name is, yeah.
Angry Bob, yeah. So, I mean, again, it's an excuse for why it's happening. The social alignment thing, that was syzygy, and that was barely coherent, but that was at least a reason. Why are there 2 Berts? I don't get it. Why is he doubles?
I think you're working on the idea of it's that belief that everyone has an identical double somewhere because nature can only make so many originals.
Yeah.
Which, it just makes me strike, because I've been rewatching The Office lately, is there's one where Michael's looking for his soulmate, and Dwight makes a comment about saying, there are more women living in Asia, so the chance of you finding your soulmate is negligible, or something like that.
I made a similar joke when I was much younger.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry Pratchett also had one about this, which was generally considered that the best romance ever would be between these 2 people if they didn't live 1,000 years apart on different continents.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of madness. And, I mean, surely you could have done something with Mulder and Scully running into their stunt doubles. I mean, this is a joke from Spaceballs anyway.
Yeah.
But why not do something with that? Have them visit them in hospital or something.
They don't even acknowledge the fact that these 2 hospitalised FBI agents look exactly like them.
No. Or uncannily similar, yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but it should be noted that one of them is played by Mulder's stunt double and the other is played by Scully's stand-in, who is also Arlene Pleggy, Mitch Pleggy's wife.
Yeah, and his assistant, the one who is missing from NME. In the one joke in that episode.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't understand why there's two birds of panic. At all. It's just... And the fact, though, that... What got me about that as well, though, is that Scully has been talking to Angry Bob, who's been shouting literally the entire time. And it's like the second time she talks to him that the guy wakes up and says hello. What? Has he been there the entire time?
They had to do the Angry Bob scene in one take. It's one of the few bits of trivia I found about this episode. Just because being that loud and angry was giving the actor migraines. So he refused to do it through all the rehearsals for the character because he was making himself ill and just did that in one take, all the shouty scenes, so he didn't injure himself.
Again, I'm going to come back to your thing about the whole Chris Carter was writing The Lone Gunman at this point in time. Give it to someone else. Please. I don't care which of them you gave it to.
It's not an unservable idea, this idea of everybody has a double and the unlikely event that you meet and the kind of cosmic disaster it caused.
Yeah.
Exacerbated by the fact that you managed to get two of these doubles in the same place as one time, magnifying the effect.
Yeah.
I want to see either the Vince Gilligan version or the Darren Morgan version, to be honest, because I think either of those writers could have done a better job, because they're the character writers.
Yeah. I can't help but believe Chris Carter was unhappy with how Syzygy was received and wanted a do-over. And this is his attempt at it, and that's why he wrote it and didn't let anyone else do it. Because it's the whole, I have to prove this idea works.
Yeah.
Apparently it doesn't. Or if it does, he needed to do it at a different time when he's not trying to write the Lone Gunman pilot. Which is going to be fun to talk about in a season's time.
Yeah, you do mention that, actually. It was based on a kind of kernel of an idea that Carter has had for a while, and he wanted to write it. I think it was just the bad time to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't consider him to be the best writer of the series anyway, and this evidently was not the time he could put his full focus into it.
We've talked a fair bit about Fight Club. I mean, I think the short review is, go and watch the David Fincher film, for the love of God.
The excellent David Fincher film, and the excellent Chuck Palahniuk book that it is based off.
Yes. Can't comment on Fight Club 2, because everything I looked at that when we go, what? Why? No. And I don't know anything about the video game, but I can't imagine that great either. But
it had good feedback at the time.
I imagine it did, but at the same time, a fighting game for Fight Club feels like you've missed most of the point.
I think a lot of people who watch Fight Club miss the point of Fight Club.
I know. Well, we know we there's a cultural thing of David Fincher has sort of said, I think, to his daughters, if anyone told you their favourite film is Fight Club, run.
Yeah.
And there's a nuance there of it depends why it's their favourite film.
I remember studying it. I did a unit on my philosophy degree called Philosophy of Film, and we learnt heavily into Fight Club on that. From a philosophical standpoint, it's a fascinating film.
Yes.
Not if you are going to kind of relate to Tyler Durden in any way.
So, as at the top, we're not going to be here next week. We're taking a week off. But when we come back, we'll be finishing season 7. So we'll do 2 episodes and we'll do our sum up, best, worst episodes. Worst is going to be an interesting exercise this time.
There are some big extremes in this season, I think.
And this one, I think we're actually going to struggle for the first time to get 5 good. And then we will also talk about Je suis and Requiem.
Which are the last 2 episodes of this season.
Yep. Requiem is an odd episode because it's got a cliffhanger, but wasn't really written with any idea of where that cliffhanger was going to resolve.
I did see that as an odd argument. I can't remember whether it was for Hollywood AD or Fight Club, where people were commenting that at this point they were nearing the end of season 7 and they didn't think they were going to get another season. So why didn't you have more conspiracy at the end of this?
Yeah.
You know, you would have thought that the last maybe 3 episodes would have been some conspiracy arc then.
Yeah, it's kind of, it feels like they're wasting time at this point. They're just doing random things. In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media. On Twitter and Tumblr, we are at GetStrange42. On Mastodon, we are at GetStrange42 at universedon.com. And on Facebook, you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also stream live on Twitch TV Mondays and Wednesdays at 8pm GMT, Saturdays at 5pm GMT, under the name Adverse Camber 42. I stream whatever I'm currently playing on the PlayStation 5. Currently, in my regularly scheduled stream, I am playing Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. And I also, on an ad hoc basis, whenever I've got a couple of free hours, I'm currently playing Cyberpunk 2077. If you follow the Adverse Camber 42 Twitter, I'll always give you a heads up when I'm going to pop on and play some of that.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where you can find our exclusive stuff. This includes a Let's Play of the first X-Files game, our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, which isn't great, but we tried, a review of Goblins by Charles Grant, and a review of Whirlwind by Charles Grant.
Which are the adult novels.
Yes, and next will be Ground Zero by Kevin J. Anderson.
We're working on it.
We're working on it, and we get those and the other books by Kevin J. Anderson. And then maybe after we've done the adult novels, we'll do the Resist or Serve, and then we'll do the young adult stuff.
Yeah, it was fun doing the Let's Play of the original X-Files game. I'm looking forward to Resist and Serve.
Our theme music is Envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on Compotech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember...
It's a Silence of the Lambs meets Greatest Story Ever Told type thing.